2006 in London, England, something happened that would change everything. Alexander Litvinenko was not just another immigrant critic, he was a former FSB officer who had become a loud, public enemy of the Kremlin. In exile, he accused Russian security services of corruption, extrajudicial killings, and plots against opponents of Vladimir Putin. By November 2006, his papers, his testimony, and his relationships with other exiles made him a living symbol of what many in Moscow wanted silenced. The sequence that followed reads like a political thriller. In the first days of November, Litvinenko met with two Russian men, later identified as Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Kovtun, over tea. Within hours he fell violently ill. Over the next 3 weeks his condition deteriorated, vomiting, hair loss, acute pain. Modern medicine and emergency surgery could not stop the invisible assassin. On November 23, 2006 he died at University College Hospital. The cause was extraordinary, acute radiation syndrome caused by polonium-210, a rare and intensely radioactive isotope. What turned this into more than a murder was what came after. Polonium-210 isn't something you pick up at a marketplace. It is produced in minute quantities in nuclear reactors and handled under strict state control. Traces of the isotope turned up like breadcrumbs across London, on plane seats, in hotel rooms, in a Japanese restaurant, even on a doorknob. Forensic teams mapped contamination, slowly reconstructing a path that led back to the meetings Litvinenko had in the capital. The inquiry that followed was not merely forensic, it was geopolitical. Britain opened a public investigation that ran for years. Witnesses were called, phone logs examined, CCTV trawled. The official conclusion, delivered by a judge in 2016 after an exhaustive public inquiry, was stark. It was more likely than not that Litvinenko's murder was approved by the Russian state. The report named Lugovoy and Kovtun as the men who administered the poison and concluded that the polonium almost certainly came from Russia. It even suggested the operation would have needed the cooperation or knowledge of senior officials in Moscow. From a practical standpoint, the conspiracy was ruthless and clever. The method left a signature and did not require a firing squad, a cup of tea, a momentary closeness, a substance that would produce a slow, catastrophic illness and a trail for investigators to chase. From a political standpoint, it was an unmistakable message: exile and denouncement of the state could be met with a deadly hand across borders. The international fallout was immediate. London demanded cooperation, Moscow refused extradition and would not hand over suspects. Lugovoy, accused by British prosecutors, returned to Russia and later entered the State Duma, enjoying political protection. Diplomatic relations between Britain and Russia frayed, questions about state responsibility and impunity for political killings echoed across Europe. For Litvinenko's family and allies, the inquiry's findings were vindication, but justice in a conventional sense, arrests, trials, extraditions, never followed. Beyond the legal consequences, the case changed perceptions. It demonstrated how modern states could weaponize uncommon technologies to eliminate opponents far from the motherland, and how those acts could be both messy and traceable. It forced Western intelligence and law enforcement to confront the reality of transnational assassination as a tool of statecraft and to adapt forensic techniques to radioactive footprints. A decade after his death, the Litvinenko case remains a touchstone. It is a story of courage and consequence, of a man who turned from insider to accuser, of scientists and detectives who pieced together an invisible crime, and of a geopolitical system where rivalries are played out with deadly ingenuity. The public inquiry's conclusion, that a democratic capital had been turned into the scene of a state-sanctioned killing, stroked fear into the international order and left an uneasy truth: sometimes the most modern conspiracies are the quietest ones, carried in a cup of tea and the chemistry of a lethal element.